We will now go to Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Alliance. David, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is David Lepofsky. I'm speaking as chair of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Alliance. I also draw upon my experience for several years as the chair of the Toronto District School Board's Special Education Advisory Committee. Bill 101 is a disaster for students with disabilities and their parents. It does nothing to make things better. It does lots, risking that it will make things worse. Listen to the whole day you've heard today of your only day of hearings. Parents' voice, we're a sideshow. We're a small minority of who was allowed to speak here. Listen to the arguments that were made in support of this bill. Oh, it's all about CEOs and all that kind of stuff. What they were talking about had no relationship with the world we live in. I dare say a parent, a student, or a teacher listening to this would say, are they talking about schools? Like, at all? This is, respectfully, ridiculous. But it gets worse. Premier Ford is known to all of us as the guy who campaigned as the champion to cut red tape and get rid of bureaucracy. Well, this bill injects the greatest load of provincial red tape and bloated bureaucracy in our school system in our lifetimes. Look at the myriad of regulations by the minister, regulations by the cabinet, directives by the minister, guidelines that are binding by the minister, policies by the minister, decisions where you got to get the approval of the minister, or where if the director of education isn't happy with the trustees, they could go to the minister. This is called bureaucracy soup. And the reality of it is, if you pile it all up, the minister was asked today, well, what's it going to cost? And he said, oh, well, it won't cost school boards anything. The reality is, for school boards to figure out what all these rules are, and of course, once they're made, they could be changing, and they don't have to be consulted, figure out what they got to do, and when they got to get permission, and then getting permission, or trying to get permission from the minister. Have you ever tried to get a decision out of a minister's office? I worked in the Ontario Public Service for 33 years. Respectfully, there are times you could die of old age. And it has nothing to do with which of your parties is in power. But everything here is decisions of the minister. Our kids will be graduating before their rights in kindergarten may get decided. And then you got to have a phalanx of bureaucrats in the minister's office to come up with all the forms and then read all the applications from 72 school boards when they need to get directions on all of these things. Because that's what happened when you're trying to have one minister at Queen's Park essentially running the entire system. It's going to be a ton of bureaucracy. It's going to cost a whole lot more. It's going to cause uncertainty and chaos, and it's going to be really slow. So normally when you come up to, as a community advocate, if I go to any of your parties and say, we want to propose a new piece of legislation, any of you, left, right, center, whatever, you ask two questions. What's it going to cost? This hasn't been costed, and we were told this morning it doesn't cost at least school boards. Well, folks, oh man, it's going to cost. And since we've heard there's no new money for it, we know where that money's going to come from, the classroom. Is that putting student achievement first? Draining underfunded classrooms to fund more red tape and bureaucracy? I don't think so. The second question that any of you would ask, left, right, or center, is, you need a new law? Well, isn't there a law that can do this? So here's the thing. Before Bill 101 came forward as a means to solve a problem that we were told exists, we got a 300-plus page Education Act that gives tons of power to the minister. And then 3 years ago, we got Bill 98, which gave him more power. And then last fall, we got Bill 33 that gave him even more power. There is no indication here that the minister has tried to use, much less exhaust those powers to solve problems, and therefore he's got to come through with this kind of bulldozer legislation. Just take the issue of absenteeism. Where's the proof that the minister tried fixing this for 8 years with all of the powers he's got? I don't see any. Well, I don't see anything, but that's part for me. Okay? But the reality is, like, come on. And the way they go about it is bizarre. So we're going to come up with a rule that requires them to show up. That is a form of public policy. If we translated it to medicine, it would go like this. How are we going to treat somebody with stomach flu? We're going to put duct tape over their mouth and nose. It makes the apparent symptom go away, not comfortably, but it doesn't solve the problem at all. Then the question comes, well, what about students with special education needs? So afterwards, the minister said, oh, we'll exempt them. So what we're going to do is make them ask for their exemptions. Parents with kids with disabilities, we got tons on our plate, much less trying to find out, go through a bureaucracy now to get an exemption from that.
1 minute remaining.
But I'm going to give you one more problem that you got to understand. If you tell kids with disabilities they don't have to meet the mandatory attendance requirement, but the other kids do, you have now gifted a brand new source of bullying. And I thought that was a problem we want to solve. We got tons of recommendations, and I'd love to talk to you in my question and answer about how you fix this.
And I recognize MPP Fraser.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to everyone who's here today on the last deputation of the day. But I'm going to start with Mr. Lepofsky. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was good that it came at the end of the day because I think it snapped us out of the end of the day kind of lull. You expressed very clearly, I think, some of the challenges there. I'm going to make a couple comments, and then I'm going to let you tell me what you think we need to do. So I think if you want to point to anything about everything being run from a corner office somewhere in Queen's Park, all you have to look at is the minister hanging on to the EQAO results for 2.5 months while educators needed it because he wanted to look at it and study it. So evidently can't walk and chew gum. So number one. Number two, absenteeism. I asked the minister this morning, can you tell me the 3 main causes of the increase in absenteeism in our schools? And I got an anecdotal answer. It might be this here, it might be that there, we hear this. So I don't understand how you think you're going to solve a problem if you don't understand the root causes of it. So I'll leave the floor to you. And you can.
Number one, because this is, by the minister's own statement, such a massive change, it should not be proclaimed in force till at least 2030 to give school boards a chance to see all those regulations, all those policies, gear up, figure out what the heck is going on so we don't cause chaos. And even though the bill isn't enacted, the government can enact drafts. Number two, there should be an independent audit and a value for money audit by the Auditor General of this bill before it is proclaimed in force, because telling us, at least as far as school boards are concerned, it's not going to cost anything, it just is not plausible. Number three, we propose that it's now completely unintelligible what the job of the trustee will be. I challenge our colleagues from the government to list for us, what's the job of the trustee? What are their powers? The bill should be amended to clearly define it. Next, the bill should require the government to consult before it adopts regulations, guidelines, and so on. They didn't on the bill, didn't consult us. Now, cornering in the hall here, the minister's agreed to talk to me. In fact, he agreed twice when I talked to him, and he said, we'll meet soon. So I'll see if I can take him up on that. But we need that built into the law here. Next, we need a requirement that all of these new policies and regulations do not create any more barriers for students with disabilities, because bureaucrats create barriers. Second last thing, the bill should set a clear path for the 8 boards under supervision to get back to local democracy by November 15th of this year, so people can know what they can do. The minister can have power to override that, but can we have some clear benchmarks? Just saying they're not on the right path, i.e. his own supervisors are not on the right path, isn't good enough. Finally, the minister he said we need to standardize. We have uneven practices on special education.
1 minute, 55
Here's a
seconds.
solution. The minister received a report, his predecessor, in January of 2022, 4 years ago, the final report under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act of the Kindergarten to Grade 12 Standards Development Committee. The government promised to enact an accessibility standard for education. Strong support for it. They're still 4 years later not doing it. They don't need new legislation. They just need to take the responsibility they now have and actually do it.
Thank you very much. How much time do I have left?
You have 1 minute, 15 seconds.
Thank you very much. You know, you'd mentioned, it's John Fraser, MPP for Ottawa South. You mentioned earlier that you were the chair of SEAC, Special Education Advisory Committee, Toronto District School Board.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. And so I'm trying to figure out how one child whose needs aren't being met is going to be met by enacting this bill. Do you have any comments on that?
Things have already gotten considerably worse at TDSB since the supervisor took over. He won't even come to our Special Education Advisory Committee meeting. 2 weeks ago, we had a public town hall that invited parents of kids with disabilities and special ed needs to tell us what their problems were. He wouldn't even show up. It's on YouTube, not because he allowed it. In fact, he banned that, the minister, but because the Ontario Autism Coalition live streamed it. You can watch it online. 1,000 people already have. Our access, we've heard about the need for more accountability. With the absence of trustees, with all their foibles, and I can list them.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move on to the independent for 3 minutes. I recognize MPP Clancy.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you all coming today and taking time out of your busy schedules and sharing your expertise with the committee. I hope that we will learn from you and we will implement changes in this bill so that we can have a bill that measures twice and cuts once.
I'm going to go to David because I don't have much time. And David, I just want to ask you, you've mentioned you're already seeing the behaviors of the supervisors, their decisions, which are harming kids with disabilities and their families, and now this bill, Bill 101, is going to give them liability protection. The Minister of Education was here this morning. He said he has no intention of adding any funding to school boards to cover all of these new responsibilities. He refused to say he would eliminate the shortfall in special education funding. As you mentioned, there is absolutely nothing in here that provides any greater support to students with disabilities. In light of all of that, do you have concerns that this bill is giving the minister and his appointees sweeping immunity protections?
I think there's several problems, one of which is that. The next problem is, for those who want more accountability, what this is actually going to create is more of a tyranny of the senior education bureaucrats at school boards, because having taken what are relatively weak trustees already in terms of their current powers and gutted them further and put the minister in this driver's seat, there's going to be virtually no oversight. So there's going to be less accountability. What we're already finding at TDSB right now is that the budget process, which by law our Special Education Advisory Committee is supposed to be consulted on, is more secret than ever. It seems the bill is driven by the idea that we just don't have enough secrecy around school board budgets. Last point, here, let's just agree on one thing. Let's just rename the bill the Red Tape and Putting Red Tape and Bloated Bureaucracy First Act. At least the title will be accurate.
Thank you. And when we know that there's thousands of kids who aren't able to be at school every day, hundreds of thousands who aren't allowed to be at school for the full day, did you find it very encouraging when the minister said they would be exempted from any attendance requirements?
We've been asking the minister and his predecessors since 2019 to use the ample powers he now has to rein in the arbitrary power of school principals to refuse to admit kids to school either at all or for the full school day. And so far in 7 years, they've done a grand total
Thank you very
of
much.
nothing.